just went over what we're liking about the gameplay, some things that we think are some of the shortcomings, but some of the strength as well. Let's get into the story, man. MK1. This is where I was more invested in. Like, don't get me wrong, I love me some NRS games. I've competed in several of them over the years. I haven't in this one, but it has not stopped me from being invested in the storyline. So, quick premise, right? MK11 happens. By the end of MK11, we're going the Marvel route, baby. Multiverses. There's all these other timelines in this, it's what we're not calling them multiverses, we're just calling them timelines here, where different things happen at different times, which could explain different games and different histories, yada yada yada. By the end of it all, Liu Kang became the keeper of time, and if you include the DLC, there was there's a little bit more to how he became that. There's also, someone he ended up fighting to become that. There's a big choice at the end of it, all that good stuff. Now we're in the post of that, post recreating the universe, and we are jumped right into it when it comes to Raiden and Kung Lao, and the story unfolds from there. Do we care about spoilers? Do we care about spoilers?
I mean, do you think there's some people who, because they just got their hands on it, might be a little too early?
Maximilian's, his story playthrough on YouTube is still not done. I mean, on Twitch it was done in 4 hours, but
okay, all right. So
all
right. If you haven't, we'll give you guys the 1 week, and if we talk about this afterwards, it's on you. But this is gonna be minimal spoilers, nothing super crazy, but let's hash it out. So. Throughout the progression of the story, we get to see a lot of really cool new takes on things, right? Well, things that we're already aware of, right? Scorpion in this world is not Hanzo Hasashi, it's Quagliang, right? It's Sub-Zero's brother.
Yeah.
Bihan is the Grandmaster. Smoke is an adopted brother of theirs. Johnny Cage and Kenshi have beef. Reptile is a follower of Shang Tsung, or rather a slave to Shang Tsung, right? They're tacking on a lot of really cool things to kind of refresh the image of it, right? As the story progresses, we get to, the stakes kind of keep going up, right? It's between Earthrealm and Outworld. Outworld is ruled by Sindel. General Shao, in other words, Shao Kahn, is just that. He's just a general underneath her, but there's still like tricklings of the traditional story in there, right? Where you like I don't know about you guys, but I'm like, oh yeah, this character has to show up at some point, and they have to act eventually this way because that's how they always have been. Are they really going to change things up, especially with someone like Shang Tsung, right? Where they showed him in the beginning cutscene of it, the first like minute of it, you see him old Shang Tsung, then you realize he's just this poor merchant that's just peddling snake oil, products and such, right? It's kind of like ironic to call it that, but maybe that's why they did it that way. And now he's guided by some mysterious figure to greatness to kind of show him that he's supposed to be more than that, and he was in other timelines. And that's what kind of just starts the ripple effects, right? Liu Kang created this world as just a kind of like a perfect world, right? No one's in hardcore war. There's still competition, right, between realms, but it's to keep the peace though. It's still in all to keep the peace. The bad guys are not in power, except for, ironically, I'm like, Shao Kahn still being like a general and like still be like, you really like, you left that piece of the puzzle in there still, is what I found interesting in his infinite wisdom to do that, while as like Quan Chi and Shang Tsung are not.
I think you need that antagonist like that because he kind of fits that role. He's the Outer Worlds, like Outworld, whatever.
Yeah, he's like their champion, right? He's like their guy.
He's still an asshole.
Yeah,
he needs to be an asshole.
Yeah, he was always a military guy first. Like that's what he was even in the previous timeline, right? He was a general, and he superseded the Dragon King Onaga. Like he killed him to become Shao Kahn because that was the original ruler of Outworld.
I do like that he's a little bit more unrefined compared to his older, like the other iterations of him, where like you could tell he always knew everything that was going on, and he was he was the forefront. He didn't have to be there, but he knew what was happening before it kind of happened, and he kind of could dictate how things were going to happen. But now he seems like this. He is a general. He's exactly how his name is. He seems like he's very impulsive. He doesn't know everything, and Sindel kind of knows everything. She kind of knows how the format should go.
Yeah, and also creating things like, you know, Melina, right? Melina being an actual daughter to her. Tarkatans aren't a race; it's a disease. I know I'm throwing a whole lot here, but it's a lot of things that they are switching and changing. And as I was going in through the story, I'm like, oh, how much of this is going to live up to it being, you know, is this going to be a good reboot? Is like, are these aspects enough for me to just like not try to remember how these characters work? Because, you know, we've collectively here have grown up with the original timeline of the events, right? From MK1 all the way to MK11. That's been the Mortal Kombat we know. The same characters through and through. It's okay until technically MK9, right? Where they kind of like rebooted it. But even then, when that was rebooted, there was a lot of similarities, right? It was more like fleshing out previous ideas. Here, I feel like they were trying to flesh out more characters, and I think they did a good job with some of them. And then I think the story took an absolute dump.
Haha, thank you. I agree.
It took an absolute dump by like the last 25%. So, you know, like I said, it's MK, and it's like they kind of went a little bit of the kind of like this Game of Thronesy type of feel, where there's like, you know, there's the kingdom and there's secrets within the kingdom and rulers don't know, but then sanctioning with other realms or other territories, and, you know, keeping secrets, this, that, and the other. There's real intentions going on. And you see the unravelings, and the thing about it is that I liked, one of the things I liked is that Liu Kang was, you know, he was the keeper of time, then he stepped down to be the ruler of, or not the ruler, excuse me, the protector of Earthrealm. Ruler would have been a little bit different.
Did you get vibes that like Liu Kang at times kind of felt like super bad guy?
I wasn't sure. It's so interesting because putting him in a position like that, like he even said it was something that was thrusted upon me, right? The responsibilities of doing this. When you look at someone like Raiden that before was trying his very best and he was overwhelmed. I'm like, bro, like he just came here to throw hands, and now he's like, oh, I'm in charge of creating a new universe and the world and life itself. It's like, man, I would have gone nuts, which ironically is why he stepped away from being a keeper of time. He was like, I was gonna go crazy. I've seen what happened to the person at this job last before I took the position. She went nuts. I'm not trying to be nuts. I'm gonna give it to the guy that's got no emotions and is basically a robot, an anomaly to time, which is Garrus, right? And I thought that was really interesting. I think Liu Kang was like very well fleshed out. I thought he was gonna be kind of boring.
Yeah, but he actually had like character. Like
he had character development to understand.
Well, he was the only character
through the whole
throughout
thing,
the entire story. Just saying.
Yeah, he was consistent throughout everything, right? Because seeing Raiden, like I'm gonna say right now, Raiden bland. Raiden as a chosen one, I'm like, bro, you are as vanilla as it gets. There was nothing interesting about you outside that you got that medallion. That's about
Why wasn't Kung Lao? I'm gonna be honest. Why wasn't Kung Lao? I felt like he had the most personality.
Bro,
he was going ham.
Kung Lao is literally the same Kung Lao. You cannot sit here and tell me he's not the same fucking guy. Liu Kang was like, yeah, this guy was an asshole last timeline. I'm gonna make him an asshole this timeline and not teach him like to be humble.
This is kind of, I guess, I'll say this is kind of early. And look, if you feel like this is gonna be a spoiler for you guys, just step away for 2 seconds. Step away. Give you that 2 seconds. The moment that they're at the point where they go into the city in Outworld, and literally Raiden's Liu Kang's like, he's like, don't be baited by General Shao, and Raiden's like, okay, I won't. And here comes Kung Lao. Yo, what's up, bitch?
Yo, what's up? You trying to throw hands? He's like that one in the club. Is like, yo, man, I don't want any problems. Then he steps up and he's like, yo, dog, you got a fucking problem? Let's go. And you're like, dog, don't escalate this shit. Why you gotta be that guy? Why? He's still that. He's still like that here. And I'm like, dude, Liu Kang literally was like, yeah, you know what? I just want this motherfucker to he made me laugh. I'm gonna like make sure he makes me laugh this timeline too. Like, it's fucking crazy. Like, they really didn't change my man. He's still a dickhead. But it's Kung Lao. That's the point, right? He's supposed to be the antithesis of what the chosen one is. Like, he has the potential, but he's just like lacking certain things to make him that badass.
I mean, but that's always been the thing, right?
Yeah,
He's always
exactly.
kind of been lacking. So, but I honestly really liked his character in general because he was more appealing, right? He was the more naturally not chosen guy that you thought would be chosen. But
it's like if you knew you had hands, you're like, yeah, you'd act this way too.
Yeah, he definitely had hands, but it was weird because like they made it seem like it made it nice because they were like, oh, you guys are kind of like best friends going on this adventure, and you're both counterparts. And they didn't really sign up for that kind of, in a sense. They kind of just fell into it. They're like, all right, let's just get it. But I do feel like Johnny Cage did not have enough time on screen.
I think Johnny Cage and Kenchi's little bromance thing was just weird. I was like, but I guess he had to give Johnny something, right? He's supposed to have redeeming qualities.
There's no Sonya.
Yeah, I guess they didn't want to do the whole womanizer thing, right? Because that was his thing.
But they
right, like every chick in like MK9 was getting hit on, like no matter what. He saw Shiva, he's like, "What's up?" Like it didn't matter to him. He's like, "Forearms, let's go." Like didn't think twice.
Forearms, more like more arms.
Actually, excuse me, yeah, he hit on Katana. He was like, "Yo, 10,000 years old." Yo, talk about aging gracefully. I was like, "Yo, my man is rizzing her up at the table, at the royal table." My man, yo, I was like, cool. Liu Kang's probably like, "Yo, dog, I could just snap. I could put you in a fucking black hole right now. You know that, right?"
Yeah.
Like,
I did find it weird where it felt like, yes, it did feel like multiple storylines at once, which was kind of nice, but it did feel like the tournament wasn't really like in the beginning. It didn't feel like a tournament. It was like, it was so weird. Why would they like test him? But like, it's almost like you're telling your opponent, "Yo, let's test him to see his skills." And they're just like, before you fight our actual official guy.
Yeah,
it's
I didn't.
Kind of insane.
I didn't feel stakes in the tournament.
Yeah,
the tournament didn't seem like it created that tension. It was everything that was happening outside of it. Like I said, Games of Thronesy, right? Like it wasn't about the Mountain versus this guy. Like no one gave a shit. It didn't really matter because what was it? Liu Kang just always stated like, if we win this, it'll stop them from it'll prevent them from thinking about military action. Like it'll just calm those thoughts. It wasn't we need to win this or else we fucking we're all dead. Like, it's like, okay, cool. Yeah, it's like, no, they have the track record of Earthrealm spanking y'all. Why are you tripping now? Like, we're already winning.
I think it's because it's been fair the whole time. Without Shang Tsung, it's not going to be unfair. Shang Tsung was always trying to cheat.
That is also true.
Tournament.
That is true.
I mean,
let me see. Any character? I know I've been kind of throwing my grievances, but give me what you guys thought. What are the standouts that you like? That you just straight up like that they did in the story? Static, give it to me because you just been sitting there like, yo, I need to let loose. Okay, spoiler warning. This is a spoiler warning. If you do not want to get spoiled by anything MK related storyline, I would pause or I would skip this.
I'm not gonna say it too much. There's just a stake from the previous game that held stake in this game that I like. I don't know if that makes sense.
That's too vague even for me.
That's I was gonna say that's super vague. What, okay. Time?
Well, no, it just has to do with the sort of twist. So I like the twist. If you know what the twist is.
You like the twist. The big plot twist.
I like the twist where it came from. I didn't like what happened after that.
I think the big plot twist was the part where I think this game dumpstered itself.
I think after that, yes.
Like
twist, I like
the plot twist completely negated what the hell happened in 11. Oh, excuse me. Okay, the plot twist kind of added to 11, but you know what? Let me be more clear. Like you said, what happened afterwards dumped what happened in 11 completely. It made no sense. I'm like, why? That completely went against everything we were just told in this exposition, moment from the enemy. And now I'm fighting the weirdest fucking characters that I've ever seen. It was such a joke afterwards. I had to look at the name on the health bar a couple times to be like, am I reading this right? I was like, is this fan fiction or is this really what's happening right now? It felt like they took a Reddit post and they said, yeah, fuck it, let's run with it.
I liked who the main villain was behind it all.
It makes sense, but it's like kind of.
But then after that, it did not. It was just like, and then I thought it could end 3 different times, and it never ended. then I was like, okay, this is just not gonna end the way I expect, nor is it gonna end with any sense being made.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
nor did it end in any flashy way. It just ended with a whimper.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, defeat bad guy, done. And I'm like, no big fatality, nothing. Okay.
How'd y'all feel on how'd you feel on the Bihan Quaglian arc? What do you think? How do you think
I thought it was fine. I thought that was the most
how they wrote Sub-Zero and Scorpion?
Yeah, I thought it was the most fleshed out because there were characters you were seeing as if you were a fly on the wall.
Okay.
First, you see them as a fly on the wall, and they had dialogue when you're not with them, like here in the first parts, and then later you see them fighting in a certain part and how they all flesh out. I'm saying fighting other people and then maybe fighting each other. I don't know. That's up to you to watch. Okay, bye.
I think the thing is they had an objective. That's the biggest thing. They had a real objective that they were trying to achieve, and yeah. Plus, like I said, I feel like there's some, like you asked, who do we feel like is really fleshed out? I really felt like the whole Outworld concept was fleshed out more. Most of those characters, but I liked personally, and I'm saying like personally, interactions all the way up to certain points. Obviously, I really did like characters like Sindel. I thought Katana was kind of bland. Obviously, Melina had her own story. So I like those stories where you felt like, okay, this is a side story, I know. But the characters play it so well to some extent that you're like, all right, I invested in that. Like,
I
invest into is right.
you know who, so two things. You know who I thought they did a good job in kind of trying to, it's interesting, I felt very Saturday morning cartoonish, was fucking Baraka. Like, Baraka went from being this vicious animal, like, especially if you remember him from the MK2 days when you first see him, you're like, wow, there's just, this thing's just about killing, it's about murder, like, you can never befriend this thing.
He's violent.
To, like, now he's like, you know, he was an ex-rich merchant, he's just been infected by Tarkatan, and he's leading this tribe, this, that, and the other. It's about his people. I'm like, wow, they made him a very noble person, which I guess, you know, as being a merchant and stuff, you would have those characteristics. But but he was just very like, your enemy's my enemy, and now we're cool. It's like there was nothing vicious about him like that.
You like that though?
It was just weird because Baraka has always been the opposite. He's just like, he's either a thug, right? It's like point me to who I need to shove my knives into, my arm knives into, and that's what he'll do. Or he's just like constantly fighting. He was always to be feared. He was never one to have a conversation with. That's the thing that threw me off.
I guess if you look at it, he's always been kind of like if you look at Street Fighter, you always know he's like Balrog or he's like Vega. He's that villain that's always there to do something for someone. But yeah, no, this time he's kind of like a neutral party.
Exactly. So, or rather, no, he's a good guy. It's just like just like he just listened to logic very easily, and I was like, okay, wow, didn't expect that. And the other was Havoc. I think Havoc was so throwaway. Outside of the scene where, you know, you obviously see what happens to his face that caused him that, like, Havoc had a lot more going for him in the previous version of himself and before the reboot of MK9. And, you know, with there's Chaos Realm, there's Order Realm, there's two, you know, they're not even talking about that here. But, like, it doesn't really explain what the hell he is because throughout the story, he's like normal. There's no witchcraft or anything like that. That's kind of like, or any kind of magic that he has.
Do you think that's because it would have been too much to cover? Like, they had a lot.
I don't know.
They had a lot.
It was a lot.
That's what's hard to tell. Like, because, like, you know, we've seen all the other Mortal Kombats. They kind of had this direction, and we were kind of like, we hate these characters, and these characters getting brought back are kind of weird, but we understand why they're brought back. Like, they always had some explanation for things, and they always kind of, I would say they kind of fleshed out the story to some extent. Mm-hmm. Even if you look back into the Injustice days, they fleshed out a full story. Granted, that has a comic behind it. Yeah. This felt kind of like, here's 100 stories, but we can't finish them. Yeah. Maybe we'll bring it back in the next MK, but right now you just know what you know.
Yeah, like I
made it through origin stories, because this was obviously a full origin story, but they only origined like a couple of things.
Yeah.
Like, so many things were throwaway. Natara. They should have maybe done like maybe a bad guy story mode.
Yeah, that would have been good. What is it? But you know what's funny? The endings, the arcade endings, tend to flesh out more. Ironically enough, the arcade endings tend to flesh out a lot more, especially if you want to watch. If you want to see something really cool, like go find Smoke's ending. Smoke's ending is really dope. I was like, oh my god, it answered a big question that a lot of people have had about a certain character in the game for so long, and I'm like, oh, that's an interesting direction they're taking. Okay, cool. But overall, I think the story was a breath of fresh air. That then it turned into a fart at some point, and you're just taking that in. Like I said, like 3/4 of the way in. I think it was a little rushed at the end there. It just fell off for me. But I like certain directions with certain characters. If they continued the game after this to MK2, which, oh my god, this naming scheme is giving me such a headache. It could be set up to be really good story. Unless they also do DLC. That'd be cool if they kind of try to work on maybe expanding the DLC and the story through some DLC. We're not sure, but those are directions they could definitely take with it.
I mean, we're coming to this point where we're starting to see games get updated. I don't want to drag on too much about it, but we're kind of getting to this point where we see games being updated within the game so that they don't have to keep making a new iteration. Do you think it'd probably just be better if they just do like, here's a $30 DLC, we're going to keep doing these type of things for story's sake and more content, obviously?
I would prefer for a free story update.
Free story update like Guilty Gear.
Yeah, give me a free story update. That's fine. I'll do that.
Would it be considered a free story update if they just do free story update and then they do all this extra content, but they don't really update the story unless you buy the content?
Gotta make that money somehow. Gotta make that money. But MK1, I think is a good foundation. But we're just gonna have to wait and see as to how the game is gonna flesh out over the years, how that DLC is gonna be, and how we're gonna kind of expand on the gameplay in terms of the competitive side.
But before we take the break, because I know we're gonna take the break, but
we take the break in 5 minutes. So
yeah, that's fine. I want you guys take. What do you think? How long do you think this one's gonna last? Because we've seen Injustice, we've seen Mortal Kombat last about
NRS cycle is somewhat a little unpredictable in terms of how long. MK11
it's a versus game.
Usually it's 3 years. NRS cycle is something like 3 years. Literal NRS cycle is like 3 years before you need a new game by 3 years in. I think it could go a little longer. I want to give it the benefit and say 4. Because MK11, I think MK11 broke it a little bit, right?
Well, they had no choice, right? Because they were trying to plan for this.
Yeah, that released in 2019. Actually, it's a little more. Yeah, April 2019. So we're kind of we're ahead in terms of the 3 years, right? We're over 4 years on it. This one, I would say maybe we're getting a year. So I'd say 4 to 5 years.
Gabe,
give it that.
Depends on how long DLC is lasting, because we haven't even seen it come out yet. And if they're gonna end with this one or do a Combat Pack 2. Then yeah, but like Injustice was short. Injustice 2, I mean, short.
Oh yeah. I mean, we know why.
Yeah.
People want MK. I'm gonna say 5. I'm gonna give it 5. I'm gonna give it a solid 5 just because it's a versus game and they have so much room to improve. And maybe we could get that free story update, right? Because like you can expand on stuff that they already have and they don't want to keep going. All right, you played MK1, now here's MK2, right? So I think the route has to go, hey, let's extend this as long as we can, 5 years. I think it's people want it, all right? So give it 5 years.